Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, Wednesday, July the 28th. I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com, and the chat room is open, and I've already got some good friend in there, and I'm just happy to be able to continue to do these shows. It helps me to learn, at the same time as passing on information. So I get a lot out of it, and I sure hope other people are as well. And I just thank you for tuning in. We're going to continue to look at codependency, and I found some great information just over the weekend on codependency recovery, codependency and narcissism. And this was something that I really had never studied. I had never really looked into it, even though I had heard from various people that in the past people would talk about codependency, and even some people would say that some members of my family were codependent, and I always thought that was kind of interesting. I thought I knew what it was about, and without even doing the research. But actually, it's great to actually look at it, and get the information right. And some of the stuff I can relate to, and some of it I can't. So we don't want to self-diagnose ourselves as being codependent or post-traumatic stress disorder or whatever. We don't really want to self-diagnose ourselves. You know what I mean? It's just a good idea to look at this information, and then when we go and actually seek help, right? Whether it's a counselor or a therapist or group support or whatever, really it should be a professional who would diagnose us, right? But it's just interesting to take a look at it and to see what it is, and to see if we actually are do have these behaviors or are doing these type of things and have these symptoms, right? Because as survivors of child abuse, quite often we really suffer from a lot of different types of behavioral and emotional problems, right? Whether it's anxiety disorders or post-traumatic stress disorder, there's a number. I mean, there's quite a number of things that can happen to survivors of child abuse, right? And so that's why I like to take a look at it, because it's really, it's not our fault. It's just that we had to learn to cope, and we had this is, sort of the leftovers, the aftermath of the abuse, right? And as an adult, right, we have to learn how to get help and how to help ourselves and how to get help, right? And reach out, and not suffer and not continue to sort of self-sabotage or let these things dictate our life. It wasn't our fault in the first place, the abuse, and that's why I just think that it's not something to be ashamed of. The shame belongs to the abuser, right? And we should get help and get moving on with our life and create a good life for ourselves. You know what I mean? We really owe that to ourselves, because it's growing up in an abusive home, or if you're involved in a domestic violence situation, domestic abuse, you really didn't deserve that. And so no one does. And so, then it's up to us to help ourselves, you know what I mean, to get to get what we need to help ourselves, and then move on and have a good life, right? We do deserve it. And it's very hard. And so it's a long, it's a process, and we have to go through it. And so, I'm not a professional counselor. I don't have any professional certificates in these areas. I'm just a person who pays to do my blog talk shows, just to get information out to people, and I'm also studying all the time myself. And so yeah, we just need to get help, right? Whether it's a counselor, a therapist, group support, which I really like, because I feel comfortable with safety in numbers, right? And but whatever works for you to help you out, that's what. And if you try something and it doesn't work, then just keep looking. You find a counselor that's just not working and you don't seem to connect with them. I've read this on many websites. We're supposed to just keep looking. And eventually we will find, I like to believe that we would find the help that we need, right? So we can go on and heal and have a healthy life, right? A good life that we deserve, right? So, you have to listen at your own discretion, and especially survivors, it depends on how far along you are in your healing to just how much information you're really able to take. And if you're feeling that it might trigger you and cause you to feel uncomfortable, you have to turn the show off. It would not be hurting my feelings at all. I'd appreciate it, because no one, you don't want to trigger. And so if you just feel a little bit, unsure and just not comfortable with the topic of codependency and whatnot, then, or the topics of abuse, just turn the show off, and you can always listen another time when you're feeling stronger and you feel like you can handle the information, right? And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have someone okay it, that you can listen to my shows, mainly because there's a lot of adult content on here, and I don't know how young the people are who are listening on the players, so I just appreciate it if you have an adult listen to the show with you, and this way they can tell you, or help you to make the decision whether or not you should be listening to it, right? So we'll get right into this. We left off yesterday. We're talking about some of the questions. They have 20 questions on this website, and it's recoveryworld.com. And I'm just going to bring this up. It's interesting, really, to take a look at it. Recoveryworld.com. It's www.recovery-world.com, and then / are you a codependent person? That's the actual topic in this Recovery World that we're looking at. And they have a questionnaire just to identify signs of codependency, and it's the questions is 20 questions, and they said, just because we experience or might experience some of the symptoms, and can relate to some of the questions, doesn't mean that we are codependent. So that's why I was saying earlier, we don't want to self-diagnose ourselves. That's just it's not cool. Like my dad is like that. He self-diagnoses himself with everything, And so he's always walking around thinking that he's got everything wrong with him. You know what I mean? He's got cancer. He's got brain tumors. He's got everything. You know what I mean? And until you're really diagnosed by a professional, really don't know if you have it or not. That's why I don't diagnose myself as having post-traumatic stress disorder or anything like that, because I don't know if I actually have it or not, or did have it, because I haven't been diagnosed, right? And so I don't say that I have. All I do is sort of relate to some of the symptoms, and I can relate to some of the symptoms for sure, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have it. So that's why it's a good idea to get, if you are suffering and you're just having a hard time, and you think, I'm experiencing some of these things and just can't seem to move past it. It seems to be affecting my daily life at work. I can't, and if these things are actually happening to you, and you just feel like you can't cope, and it's very, very hard, which I know because we've all, as survivors of child abuse, quite often feel this way. You do want to get help, right? You don't want to suffer and suffer on your own and suffer in silence. And there's help out there. Whatever help it is that works for you, be sure and seek it out. Look for it, because you deserve to feel good. You deserve to have better days than bad days. You know what I mean? As we've already survived the child abuse, and I just feel so bad for people, because it's like, well, we suffered as children, so why do we have to continually suffer as adults? And that was my question 3 years ago, because I was not suicidal, but I was, considering that the only way I'd ever find peace was to be off this planet. And my brother killed himself, so another one of my brothers actually died of a drug overdose, which he knew would kill him eventually, right? I thought, well, peace would only come if I was off of this earth, And so it's not like I was suicidal and attempting suicide, but I had suicidal thoughts. And 3 years ago, I was wanting to self-injure, and I stopped myself, and I sat back, and I thought, why am I doing this to myself, Like, no one's going to care. I was sitting by myself in my living room and feeling so down, just so completely down. Probably one of the worst points of my life. And I sat there and I thought, I'm 40 years old, I'm 39, and no one is going to care if I self-injure, right? And the reason I wanted to self-injure was really just to show the pain in my heart. I thought, people should see the pain in my heart and the pain that my parents caused me. I'd like for people to see that. And then I thought, well, if I trash myself and I hurt myself, no one's going to care anyway, So I'd be doing more damage to myself, for absolutely no reason whatsoever. So that's how I was using that self-injuring to cope. Really, it was mainly just to show the pain in my heart. And so I decided not to do that, and I sat back and I thought, man, I do not deserve to have. First of all, I didn't deserve the abuse, right? And now look at what I'm doing to myself. I'm not even reaching out to get help, and no one would care in my family, if I just disappeared off the planet. They might cry a little bit, and that'd be about it. I thought, man, no, I'm going to fight to stay alive. I'm going to fight to live this life and to have a good life, because I deserve it. So I started telling myself this every day. I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, I do deserve it. I do count. I do matter. I don't care what anybody has told me in the past, especially my parents. I'm just going to take that garbage that they put on me, throw it away, and I'm going to start learning how to love myself and how to love this life and how to love other people and trust other people and trust myself. And it was a journey, let me tell you. But that was 3 years ago, and I'm so thankful that I did not end my life, because I found peace. I found peace in my heart. And so that's the thing. I would wish that for everybody. I really do, because I never thought it was possible, and that's why I'm doing these shows, right? Because I didn't think it was possible that I would ever have peace in my heart. It didn't ever seem to be something that I would ever accomplish. And, 3 years later, I'm sitting here and I'm saying, man, I'm so thankful because I have peace in my heart. I love myself, and I love this life, and I love this opportunity to help other people, and I love, the friends that I've made and my friends from my past as well. I mean, I really learned how to love instead of hate, and how to enjoy my life instead of want to end it. So that's why I hope you will hold on and reach out and get some help. If you're having a hard time and you're listening to this as an archive or whatever, you need something, get a hold of me or call someone, call a crisis line. There's people out there who are trained. They've probably been through it too. They're probably survivors. There's a lot of survivors on those crisis lines, and they want to see people make it. They want to see people get well and get better and have a good life, right? And move past the abuse and learn to love this life and learn to love themselves and learn to want to stay alive and want to be here, right? And so these people are trained, and not only that, but they probably care because they probably were survivors too. There's a lot of that. The crisis lines are manned generally by people who have been there, have seen it, been through it, done it. They understand it. So they're there for you. They're there for me. So if you get down to the point where you can't cope, and no one's around, your friends aren't around, and there just doesn't seem to be anybody that cares in your life, call a crisis line. Call somebody. Because people, there's good, decent people out there who are reaching out to you really by having that crisis line and saying, look, we're here, and we want to help you, and we want to listen to what's going on in your life, and then we want to help you, right? So don't allow yourself to suffer on your own. That is such an awful thing, I'm glad I reached out. I didn't call a crisis line, but what I did was I got involved in some group support, online group support. And it made a huge difference in my life because I got the validation was there. I was able to talk to other survivors who had been through a lot of the same things as myself. And it was just very helpful to have that validation and to have people pulling me along and saying, look, we know where you've been, and we want you to come along with us. We're going to help you, and you can help us, and we'll do this together. You know what I mean? And so it's so important that you just reach out and not suffer on your own, right? And so we'll get right into this article here, Recovery World Codependency. And we were looking at the 20 questions, and yesterday we left off, I believe we left off at number 14, and that was, do you think people in your life would go downhill without your constant efforts? And we had to leave off there, so that's where we'll pick up today. And so do you think people in your life would go downhill without your constant efforts? That I don't have that issue, but I know that my mom did. And my mom was very much a person like that, She would often say things like, well, if I wasn't here, nothing would be done, and if I wasn't this and I wasn't that, my mom was quite often saying stuff like that. And she probably felt very much like that, and that everybody else just couldn't do it, and the rest of us were just, not capable people. So she was always trying to put herself as being the only one that was capable, and that's sort of, I recognize that behavior in her and some friends that I've had as well. And but I don't think I don't have that problem. I just try to do my best to be sort of a person, like that can get things done, and other people around me, if they don't really think that, I don't try to say, well, by what I'm doing, everybody else would just go downhill if I wasn't here. I just know that people, and hope that people would continue and carry it on and live their lives, so I don't think I have that issue. Number 15, do you frequently wish someone could help you get things done? And, we probably all feel like that sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like, do you frequently wish someone could help you get things done? I know my mom was like that. she was always very much like that, and she was always saying, well, none of you kids will help, and nobody will help me, and your father won't help me, right? And it's because she wouldn't let anybody help her. Especially the seven, there was at any given time 5 kids in the house plus them. So 7 people living in small, tiny little houses. And so she was a stay-at-home mom for quite a few years, until I was about 12. And then she got a part-time job outside of the home. But, she lived her life, taking care of kids, you know what I mean, cleaning the house, very much domesticated, you know what I mean, just doing the wife thing, the mother thing. And she would never let her children help her. We'd, quite often want to help her out, do the dusting or, vacuum, because a lot of times we would see she was very sick. And so she wouldn't be able to do these things because she had just had surgery or she was just very, very sick. She was always sick. And so, she wouldn't let us touch the stuff. She'd be like, if you touch the vacuum, I'll wring your neck, I'll knock your head off, you know what I mean? We were not allowed to touch the vacuum. We tried to help her, and she wouldn't let us help her. Then, when she wouldn't allow us to help her, she could use that against us and say, nobody's helping me, and you guys aren't doing anything to help me, right? With the housework and with the things that need to be done around here. So she did that to herself, right? She wanted to make us look bad and make herself look good, and all she really did was end up doing all the work, and we ended up not caring because we were like, hey, we offered, and you don't want us to help, so we're not going to worry about it. So she ended up hurting herself doing that, right? Because we just didn't care after a while. We were like, you're the one that doesn't want us to help you, so if you're suffering through this, it's your own fault. And it was just, she just needed help, right? She needed some counseling. She needed some therapy, right, to help her out, right? But she wouldn't go and get it. Well, she was born in 1927, so, there wasn't a whole lot of education back then, and she didn't finish school, and, she was born on a farm, and she was abused, so she was a confused woman. Absolutely horrible what happened to her, and it's just terrible what happens to people, right? And then she passed it on to us. And it says here, question 16, do you have difficulty talking to people in authority, such as the police or your boss? And that's an interesting question. People in authority. I know I used to, when I was young, have a bit of problem with people in authority. Now, not so much. It doesn't bother me so much to have to be confronted by my boss, or if I get, in the past have been pulled over for minor driving offenses and whatnot, or if I have to talk to a police officer, then not so much anymore. But I know when I was younger, I did have a lot of problems with people in authority, and to me they were a threat. They had the power to control had control over me, right? So that always kind of bothered me because I thought, well, anything could happen, you know what I mean? So I was very nervous around people who were in authority, right? Teachers, counselors at school, coaches on the field, anybody like that who was in authority was always a little bit of a threat and a fear for me. And as a young person, as a teenager, I was quite often running into the police, and because I was up to no good, and there was a little bit of fear there for sure. And after you have so many encounters with the police officers, you realize that there's some good ones and some bad ones, and this is all the way it works, right? Because people are people. And so I started to realize that the police really were not the problem. It was my problem because I was up to no good, and that some of these police officers were very cool and were very helpful to me, and some of them weren't. So it just depended on the situation. And I started to think, well, not everybody in authority is going to hurt me, so I guess some people are pretty cool. And then as I started working working outside, having a job, I started to realize that my bosses were pretty cool, and even if I got in trouble, they weren't going to hurt me, or the only thing they could do is fire me. And I started to realize that, hey, it's okay. So I started to learn that I could, I didn't have to be distrustful of everybody. But even today, I don't like for people to be upset with me. So I have a bit of an issue with bosses that way. I've always, because I'm looking for what do you want to call that? I guess I'm looking for a pat on the back, somebody to approve of what I'm doing, especially a boss, or because I consider myself to be a really hard worker, and I make mistakes, so I'm okay with that. But if my boss is upset with me, I take it pretty hard, and it's probably just from having, the whole idea that someone could be upset with what I'm doing, and which takes me back to my childhood, which takes me back to my parents never ever being happy with what I was doing, or just their abusive ways towards me, right? So that's the thing. It can happen, right? We do have to sort of learn how to work through some of this stuff. So I do relate to that one pretty good. Number 17, are you confused about who you are or where you are going with your life? And I mean that could be anybody on any given day. Some of these questions are pretty much standard for a lot of people. I think sometimes we do probably all question who what we're doing, who we are, or what we're doing, where we're going with our life. It's pretty much a common question for a lot of people. I mean, I've known people that knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they from a young age, they just knew exactly who they were and what they wanted to do, and I always thought that was pretty cool. I never really knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to do too many things, is what it was. And I could never focus on one thing because I was always thinking that everything would be really cool. So I wanted to be, a stewardess. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be this. I wanted to be that. So I couldn't focus on any one thing, It's hard for me. I had friends who knew exactly what they wanted to do and where they were going in their life, and I thought that was great. Nowadays, I have so much more capability of looking at that and where I'm going with my life. But, when I was in my 20s especially, I had to really do a lot of work on myself in my 20s. To learn, who am I and, where am I going with my life, because I have just come off of about 9 years of drug use and really not looking after myself and really trashing my body and not sleeping for really very, very good for years and just not taking care of myself, right? And then mentally, I just needed to do a lot of work on myself, so just to get off the drugs and turn my life around and stuff like that, it took me a while. And, so my 20s were hard. I really had a hard time with who I was and where I was going with my life. And, I decided to set some goals and just try a few things. And, that did help, right? I went to cooking school, paid for my own tuition, and went to cooking school, working through the whole thing. So I was working full-time, plus I was cooking full-time. So I was cooking and working, for 16, 18 hours a day, so I learned how to cook extremely fast because I was not only working in the field of cooking, I was taking the courses as well. So I was just cooking and working all the time. But it was healthy for me because it was much better than sitting around doing drugs, and I was learning something, and I was meeting people, and I was getting out and building confidence. And sometimes it's good to set little goals like that where you think. Where you can kind of help yourself to sort of build some self-esteem and to build some confidence, because it does kind of help you to see who you really are. And then you sort of start to think, hey, I can pick a direction in life. I can find out what I want to do. You know what I mean? Once you start doing this stuff, right? Because I had kind of very, very low self-esteem. But I was a fighter, for sure. And a fighter for sure. I've always been a fighter. And I think that's why I'm still here. But, we do have to set small goals. We don't want to set anything too unrealistic, and I do that sometimes. And then I fall, and then I'm like, well, that's okay. I think I need to set my goals a little bit shorter. You know what I mean? Like make them a little bit more attainable, and that way I can obtain that goal, and then I can move on from there, right? Sort of set these smaller goals and that lead toward a bigger goal. And I think that's awesome if we can do that. You know what I mean? Because sometimes doesn't work, and sometimes it's not going to work, but then we have to find another way around it. And I'm extremely resourceful in that area because I realize that it's up to me. I'm the only one that can do that. No one's going to do it for me. I can't sit down and expect that someone would be able to do it for me. So if I don't do it, then I'm going to be sitting in the same exact place pretty much that I was if I don't make a move and make something happen and take a chance and get out there and do it. You know what I mean? And so, it's a lot of work, and sometimes we fail, like I was talking about yesterday. And I failed at a lot of stuff, right? So it's not a fun feeling to fail. But the thing is I just keep going. I just say, well, okay, I'll try this. I'll try this way. I'll see if it doesn't work this way. So it does help to build some confidence and sort of be able to see that you can do it, and we can do it. You know what I mean? And all these things. Had I listened to my parents, this is the whole issue. Had I really allowed what they had said dictate my life, I'd probably be dead right now. My brothers are dead, and they did, they pretty much they just killed themselves. One actually did kill himself, suicide. The other one, drug overdose. He had so many drug overdoses. He was pretty much just, unable to function really as an adult male. His brain was just fried, and he had just done so many drugs, and he was such a nice guy. It was just such a shame to see him go downhill like that, and he could not live a normal life. He just ruined himself, and because of what he went through as a child, and I know that's the reason why. So, I mean, I could have ended up like them, and the whole issue is I'm a bit of a fighter, you know what I mean? So it's like, no, something inside of me just says, no, I want to do this, I want to make it, and I hope that everybody will get that feeling, you know what I mean, to just say, look, I'm going to make it, I'm going to do it, and it's going to have to be me to do it, right? And we can have a good life. I really believe this, I know other people are having a good life, so why can't we, And we're going to run into trouble, we're going to run into problems, but that doesn't mean, that everybody runs into problems and everybody has trouble. There isn't one person on the planet I can imagine who doesn't have some form of trouble and doesn't have something that comes up and like a brick wall in their life where they have to really work around it. I know this is a fact, right? This is what life is, right? It's hard. But we can do it. I really believe that we can do it, right? Question 18, it says, do you have trouble saying no when asked for help? And I know that's a big one for me, and I always used to have problems saying no to people because I so wanted people to like me, and I thought, hey, if I say no when they ask for help, then they'll be mad at me or they won't like me, and I was needing someone in my life so badly, so if I found somebody that was decent toward me, and especially a friend or whatnot, if they asked me to do something, I would have a real hard time saying no. But nowadays, I'm okay with saying no, especially if I know it's beyond my capabilities. I don't mind saying no because I don't want to lead the person on, like to say, well, sure, I'll be involved, I'll help, and then find out that really I don't have what they need, I can't help them. So, I'm pretty good at that now because really looking out for the other person too, to say, look, I don't have what you need, you know what I mean? So, I have to say no in regards to this issue or whatever. So I don't mind now saying no, but when I was young, I had a real hard time with it. And it would cause me to feel really bad about myself if I had to say no about something, and it would cause me to sit around for months in sort of a self-despair type thing, of just saying, oh, this is horrible, I'm such a bad person. I turned them down, and I had to say no, and for whatever reason, that's why I generally would just say yes, because I didn't want to deal with those feelings, right? So it's a good idea, that we learn, that some things are within our power to do and to help people, and some things are not. So it doesn't mean we're a bad person if we have to say no, right? Sometimes we just can't do what people ask of us, right? And sometimes, it wouldn't be to that person's, it wouldn't be in their best interest, right, if we did get involved, because if we don't have what they need, they could go on and find what they need, right? Question 19, do you have trouble asking for help, right? And this is a big one. Do you have trouble asking for help? I think, a lot of people have trouble asking for help, and I think that's something that's very common around the world. People just have a hard time saying, look, I need help, can you help me out? And some people, because they know that the rejection is possible, right? So they know if they ask for help that they could be turned down. They could say, somebody would just say, no, I can't help you. And I mean, that's harsh. It's harsh to have to say that to somebody, that's why, these two questions are very, interesting because, no one really wants to turn people down, but yet sometimes they can't help them. And then other people, they're asking for help and then they're being turned down, you know what I mean? So that's very, very hard. And, I don't mind asking for help, but I know throughout my life that I have had problems asking for help. And I might not even recognize it. And if there was a therapist or a counselor who had been actually watching things, they would be able to see that I probably do have a hard time asking for help. Well, we have about a minute left. We'll have to finish up this question 20 and move on to the next part of this article tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for being here and tuning in, and we'll be on again tomorrow morning. I'll be on tonight, Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Elizabeth Brawley. And then I'll be on my own show after that. And then Child Abuse Prevention and Human Rights Abuse Prevention is up to us. And then tomorrow morning again, one child abuse survivor to another. So take care, everybody. Make sure you reach out. Never, ever, ever give up. Never, ever. Take someone's hand. Make a phone call. And never, ever, ever give up. I'm serious, man. We have to stick together, and we have to do this together, and we have to hang in there. And it's so important that we just keep reaching out. And I always like to say, keep that hope alive, because it's true. We have to keep that hope alive for better days. You know what I mean? better days and so many more better days than bad days. So make sure you take care of yourselves. Have a great day, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon. And keep reaching out. Bye-bye.